service. Hey everyone, welcome to Chef Sense. I'm your host, Chef Massey. Okay, so today on the podcast, we have Alicia from Wulf's Fish. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Just to kind of go into real quick my background with connecting with you guys at Wulf's Fish, which you guys have such amazing product. It first came through Berkshire. So, I know that there was that merge there and we can probably talk about that. But again, phenomenal product, and integrity that you guys have there. Can you go into your role, I guess, starting at ground zero of what you do there and kind of work into the history and the vision of Wolf's Fish and maybe even the merge?
Sure. So my role with Wulf is I'm the director of marketing and brand strategy.
Yep.
So I've been in the seafood industry since 2009. It's kind of adding up now.
Awesome.
And actually started with another company that's become a division of Wulf's, which is Clean Fish, which is working with sustainable producers from around the world, really more on the on the import side. And there's so much exciting that's happening with aquaculture in particular, and just really interesting things around the world. So Wulf itself has gone through, quite a few different iterations since it was founded in 1926. So for the first 90 years, Wulf's was a neighborhood fish market located in Brookline. And so that was, really a different world of seafood buying and of, how people were eating seafood, how people were shopping at local markets. It was founded by Sam Wulf in 1926. His great nephew, Richie Taylor, still works at the company. So we have continuity.
Okay.
Yeah, Richie's in his 70s and comes in every morning at, I think, about 3:30 to buy fish still. I mean, he's a committed lifer. That's for sure. and a huge authority on seafood and buying, and has really seen it all for changes in the industry at this point. So in 2016, the company decided to close the retail location just because, how people shop had changed, the neighborhood had changed, and decided to get into the wholesale distribution business.
Okay.
So relocated from Brookline down to the fish pier, merged with another small company called George's Bank that was doing some wholesale distribution. It's actually grown out of some chef relationships. Max Harvey ran that side of the business, and he was a chef who's worked around Boston for a long time. He worked with Jasper White restaurants for a long time, and kind of built the company first out of supplying Jasper White and restaurants, and then
which is great.
There.
So like chef centric, right? Pretty cool.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, up and down our whole masthead of people at every level of the company, there's a lot of them who've cooked before.
Okay,
we have
that's
a lot
great.
of kind of former chefs in all aspects. I mean, even I cooked before.
That's awesome.
And so, and so I mean, it brings that culinary sensibility to it. And if you're running a wholesale business, your customer is the chef. So if you understand from their perspective what they want, and what they're looking for and why something might be interesting or not, that definitely helps that relationship. And it builds that synergy between what we're doing.
Well, exactly. Do you think that sets you guys, Wolf's Fish, apart from the competition or who's out there?
I think it does. I mean, you will find other former chefs throughout the industry.
Transition.
Lots of people hit a place where they're like, "This isn't for me anymore," or maybe they've had their knees replaced already and they need a different kind of job. I've certainly met them, out in the industry. Yeah, everyone who's been in the kitchen knows how that happens. But I think that the concentration and the real culinary focus is different for us. I mean, I don't know that other companies would have quite so many people who started off in hospitality.
That's amazing.
Cooks who are passionate cooks at home too. So they really we don't just get a product on a spec sheet. We're going to do a tasting. We're going to do a cutting. We're going to see what it looks like. We're going to put it in our test kitchen even, and really put it through its paces too.
Oh, which is great.
How it performs in different applications. Yeah. No, I mean, it's important to be able to tell chefs that. So, we really come to every product from that side of things.
Well,
so sometimes I think we see the opportunities and things maybe another company doesn't see, because as cooks, we can see why it's an exciting ingredient or why we would want to cook with that.
Right.
So it makes an impression.
Well,
Um,
I think anytime that you can connect like that is just huge, and I think it helps with, once you build that trust in the program, it's like the chefs and everybody's just, it almost makes it seamless to a certain extent, I would imagine.
it does. And it also, it's allowed us to, let's see, so in 2020, we launched our e-commerce. So through wolffish.com, we're actually selling the same fish that we sell to chefs.
Yep.
Package. We decided to super freeze it for convenience, and we're selling that to home cooks. And so we bring that same sensibility as well to what we want to cook at home, what we find accessible, what we don't find accessible, and really help bridge that gap for people. Because I think seafood is probably the most challenging category. If you're a passionate home cook and you really want to get your hands on some good ingredients, you can order all your specialty grains. You can get your spices. You can make connections sometimes even with local farmers through a market, but your seafood, it's not that easy to get what you want.
So diverse
too. Like, yes, so diverse. And it's unfortunately the market, the market reflects what the American public tends to eat, and that's salmon, shrimp, and tuna.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So getting beyond that, depending on where you live too, can be really challenging. Do you have a fish market nearby? Can you actually get that quality? Can you get more than 3 species, maybe 4 on offer?
Exactly. Well, and that's interesting too, because I have to say, being here in the Berkshires, being Western Mass, and it's surprisingly, for many years it was hard to get excellent seafood. I think that we have some large broadliner vendors and, other companies here that have, that a level of reach of good, seafood. But coming from Canyon Ranch, as the chef, I was really focused on providing our guests, with the highest quality I could get a hold of. I'm with you guys today because of that. It's not easy to get. And it sounds so silly to, and I guess because I'm coming from the West Coast, coming in here, I'm like, wow, it's only 3 hours or, what have you away. But there really was a challenge. And I think being able to find someone, and I know this is going into Berkshire, but working with Wes Malzone when he was owning and operating that part that you guys currently have under your umbrella, what reached me about that and what grabbed me, there's a couple things. One was Wes started his company and he was so passionate, like the energy rolled off of him. And he came in to Canyon Ranch and we started talking about things. And, I shared with him my thoughts about trying to find excellent seafood. And boy, if he couldn't, he would just sell you on he is excellence, right? So I have to tell you, one morning he came into the kitchen and said, "Hey, look, you got to check this out." I'm like, sure. Of course, he's all excited. Let's go down to the truck. I've got it down here in the truck, So we went down there, jumped into the back of his box truck, and he opened up the container, and he was so excited about how beautiful these scallops were. He's like, "Look, Jim, I just got these." Of course, it was early in the morning there. So he opened it up, gave me a piece of the scallop. He's like, "You got to try it right now." And I did, and it was just this delicate, beautiful piece of the ocean. And I think as a chef, when people get what you're looking for and you pull from their energy and they pull from you, man, it's so awesome because when that comes in and it hits the plate, that energy is just going to continue. So I just had to share that part.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. And a truly great fresh scallop is really one of the things that can consistently blow your socks off, really.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely the kind of thing that stays in memory. Wes obviously is still with the company. He founded Berkshire because he saw what you were talking about. It's like this simple equation of how, it's really only 3.5 hours away. Why can't you get anything? Like, we have highways, we have this work. Right. People are going back and forth all the time. Yeah. Why is the fish not getting out there? And so he saw he saw that need and that there's such wonderful restaurants in the Berkshires who really would be excited to buy the best that they could get their hands on. And so he started Berkshire to be bringing seafood 5 days a week from Boston and picking it up. And so one of the places he was getting, scallops and other products was Wulf. And he was buying a lot from us and then trucking it out. And so it was really a natural build on that relationship. As Wulf was growing, we had, you start any small business. And then, of course, at some point, once you get successful, you have capacity issues. How many trucks do you have? How many people can prepare those orders? How, do you have a full team so that you're really, really getting the best every single time? And going to the front of the line, when that new tuna comes in, it can get pretty competitive.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Because there isn't always an excess of perfect product in the market. So it made sense for Wes and his customers to join Wulf, and it made sense for Wulf to expand our capacity beyond the Metro Boston area with our trucks and say, hey, we could just do this together with very few changes. He was only buying small amounts of product from other places. Like it wasn't really a huge change to just work exclusively through Wulf and merge the two teams. And I think it's been very successful.
Well, I'd have to say, looking at, I know you said 90 years and we went right into the backstory of the company, but I mean, that's, maybe it's pun intended, I guess, but like you've weathered a lot of storms and you still going strong and leading the way in many ways.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's a long time for any business to survive. We're coming up to, we're 98 years now for any business, especially in food, to go 98 years and still be independently owned. We are not part of a larger corporation with corporate mandate. Part of why we can have the best products is we get to do what we want. We're a company of obsessives for quality, and there's no mandate. It hasn't sold like many companies have to a larger corporate entity that then starts, as they do, cutting corners, saying, well, this fabulous thing you're doing isn't that profitable. Maybe you should stop. But we don't have that. We're able to still keep our vision and be the kind of company we want to be. And I think that, has been a real strength. I mean, you need a team committed, to make that happen from ownership all the way down. And we do. That we've been able to, expand with the addition of Berkshire. We also ship seafood, around the country. There are chefs in other markets, in Nashville, in Charleston, South Carolina, out in Arizona, even. I mean, especially somewhere like Arizona, like they don't have a pipeline to
and that's
coming in from the water.
It's hard. Yeah, a lot of that's coming through LAX and stuff. I mean, I actually was chefing in Arizona as well, so it's very hard.
There is LA in that pipeline. If you want East Coast specialties, then it's a little bit harder. The coast certainly hold their specialties separate. I was in California for a long time too, so I know how
cool.
The West Coast loves certain fish that the East Coast doesn't care about, and vice versa. So if you're out west and you want to bring, East Coast oysters or something, you might struggle a little bit more getting those particular varieties.
Absolutely.
So we've expanded to be able to do that when there's demand, ship to other markets. We started our e-commerce for 2020, like I said, during the pandemic, as many places did, but we were fortunately already thinking about it before that happened. So we were able to jump pretty quickly, and really we're committed to staying the course, because that's a whole other business entirely. But but we're committed to it and feel like it also fills a really interesting niche. So I think it's exciting for us to be able to distribute throughout the state. Most of the seafood distributors in Boston, Worcester is kind of the end of the world. They don't go past it. Like, anything further than that.
Well, and that, that's the thing too. I mean, so looking at like the commitment to excellence, like quality and sourcing and vetting, how does that process look for you guys? Sharing it with some of our listeners.
Sure. It's really, one of the amazing things about seafood and why it's exciting to work in the industry is the incredible diversity. I've never worked in chicken, but I imagine if you do, it's just chicken. There's some varieties, but they're not really in the market. Whereas seafood, we're going to have hundreds of different products coming through our warehouse every day, like not dozens, literal hundreds. And so each one of those represents a different relationship and a different relationship for the buyer. And they all come in differently, even through local species, you know, even different distributors. You might have offload permits for one kind of fish, but not another kind of fish. So there's both. Yeah, it's highly regulated. So like, for example, we direct offload black sea bass in the summer on the Cape. And that's a particular relationship that we're licensed for. There might be another kind of fish like tunas. Those are different licenses. So then we partner with that person and have those strong relationships to work with somebody, you know, work with somebody who is exclusively a tuna buyer. And some of that is just about our longevity on the pier. Like I said, Richie Taylor, who, you know, he started working his family's fish market after he graduated college in the 70s and just decided to do anything else. He decided he liked it there and stayed. And so he knows everyone. I mean, you know, and so does, you know, Max Harvey, who came from, you know, was the one who chef to George's Bank. He also knows a lot of people. There's a lot that's about relationships in the business. Bala, which many people follow, he is kind of our head of quality and also really in charge of buying the big fish, the tuna, the sword. Like that's his particular specialty. Some people know him because he was on Instagram, was very active. I think he has something like 70,000 followers. He's
that's great.
Cut fish. He doesn't post as much anymore, but because he's just so good at it. And so he has relationships particular to those fish. And that's how specialized it can get. Becca, who's our new head of procurement, she's a shellfish specialist. So she has particular relationships with oyster farms. Is one of her real strengths. And so, I mean, the buying is so complicated every day. I mean, there's 4 people who are actively buying every single day because it is hundreds of species.
And you're just so everyone has so much coming in.
Yeah, and it's so much, and it's so fast. I mean, everything has to move fast. The second you take the fish out of water, the timer starts to tick.
Well, and that's what I loved about it.
Everything has to move so quickly.
Yeah. Well, because it just, you know, what I noticed was the turnaround is so quick from placing the order with you guys that literally the product you're getting, it's just outstanding, that turnaround time.
It is amazing. Some of that is part of the risk of the seafood business. I mean, based on, you know, when Bala is out buying tuna at 3:30 in the morning, you know, and he's got a guy and he, like, his contacts know that Wulf only buys the top grade. It's like A1s, like you can get 1s and 2s, and there's a whole complicated system of how, like, those big fish get graded.
The grading system.
Like, we only buy the top ones. So, you know, he's got a guy and they'll put the top ones aside and make those decisions. But at 3:30, you got to guess what kind of tuna the market's going to, like, how many chefs are going to want it. You know, when it's really good, then he knows, well, it's that hot. Everybody's going to want it. And we'll post about it. And sometimes I think we sell it off Instagram, honestly. Like, we'll post a loin that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
The chefs are literally on their phones right then, trying to get a piece of it.
And that's hard too.
But a lot of it is speculation that way. Like, we have to guess a little bit.
Okay. Well, yeah. And that just, and again, looking at that window of time it really is short. I mean, and not, you know, and on top of this, looking at like traceability and sustainability and all of that, you know, how is the vision for you guys, you know, with holding that up?
I mean, everything that the points of traceability, honestly, it's always visible. Not everyone's invested in being accountable for that. I mean, we know where a fish comes from. It has to have paperwork. It says where it comes from. I think there are people in the business at various stages, particularly the distributor level, unfortunately, but honestly, down to the restaurant, they don't necessarily give the right answer, even if it's in front of them, because it's not what they want. They might say something is a different, you know, it happens as a different species, or like the tuna point, the chef orders a number 1 and someone says, it's a number 1. It's not a number 1, like it's a number 2. So there's a lot of accountability in the system, and it really comes down to the integrity. It's not mysterious. When people say you can't know, that's not true. You can know.
And you guys have that, and you have that integrity, and obviously that's why you've been around for, you know, 98 years. So, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're proud of how we source. We don't feel the need to deduct anything because we're already sourcing products that we feel really good about. So there'd be no incentive at all to tell something else. And that's honestly a big part of, once you've established yourself as that kind of company, that's why people come back. It's like, as a chef, if you order, you order number one tuna and you keep getting number two, you're going to stop calling.
Right.
Because that's not what you asked for.
Yeah.
And if you always get exactly what you asked for, or, like you're looking for those perfect scallops and you get them and they're perfect every time, then you're going to keep coming back. And that kind of trust is what so much of what the business is built on.
Well, and
it is so
huge.
Fast.
No, it is huge,
really
and it is hard, and that's extra work, involved with that, for educating the chef or the buyer. But, I know, like, I have to say too, it was great because being a part of, Canyon Ranch and our philosophy, and again, and I carry that philosophy as a chef, period. The big piece to what we were building there, being a part of the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch, and then also, following the global, or the GSA, or Global Seafood Alliance, with our BAP scoring system, being able to have somebody with integrity like you guys, it's my job to be the visionary and kind of like the veteran myself. It's my job to kind of police that and make sure that what's coming in is a part of my vision, a part of the company's vision. And you guys have always provided that. If there were things that came up, or maybe suggestions, or their grading had changed and, gone from best choice and slipped, and to be able to look at alternatives and work with you guys through that commitment on our side as a chef has always been outstanding.
Thank you. I mean, that's really great to hear. And that's definitely what we want to do, is to really help, especially to the issue of sustainability and how we look at that. It honestly, it can mean different things to different people. There are so many aspects of how something is produced that, we try to work with the customer to help fulfill their vision. For some people that might be sourcing only local products, and that's what's important to them.
Sure.
And they want to, really pursue just local products because it's sustaining the local market. They feel strongly about those species. For some, it's about certification, or some of the exciting products that are happening in aquaculture, which is a lot. I mean, there's incredible innovation in that sector, and people really pushing the envelope on how we can sustainably raise food. And that's, honestly, that's a part of the business that I get excited about, because wildlife is a finite resource. I mean, it's great, but there's not going to be more of it. Honestly, like, it's just, even now there is a scarcity in the market for many products that there wasn't years ago, and it's only going to get more complicated with climate change. There's already species are on the move. What was a local fish years ago? It's not necessarily local. It might be on its way to Canada now. It's just moving further away, and even further south. They're getting spotted and caught off the coast of Massachusetts now, and we just never would have seen them before. And that's evolving, and it's only going to keep evolving. The fish don't know where they're supposed to be. They're going to stay like.
Well, it's so interesting.
If the ocean's getting warmer, they're going to keep moving to colder water.
Well, and that's a thing. Like, there were moments where, you'd get a heads up, like, hey, we can get a hold of mahi because they're starting to head up this way. Wasn't all the time, but it was like, wow, you can, just to know that's happening. You're like, of course I'll take it. It's just interesting how that shifts. Yeah.
I mean, it's really shifting a lot, and it's shifting all the time. The Gulf of Maine, which stretches, well, it has Maine in the name. It's not just Maine. It's really up from kind of Maritimes, Canada, down through Cape Cod. And that is the fastest warming body of water, one of the fastest warming body of waters on Earth. So we're going to see a lot of changes locally. We're definitely already seeing them.
Wow.
When I was a kid, there was a lot more lobster fishing from Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Like, where are you getting lobster from Rhode Island anymore? You're not. Like, it's all moved north.
Yeah.
And it's, so I think we're both in the industry and as really conscious eaters and as chefs, we're going to have to really pay attention and adapt. And some of it might be exciting, like the mahi. Some of it might be a species we wanted that just isn't around anymore. And there might be disappointment. I mean, I think it's really going to be, it'll be a mixed bag. but we're going to have to keep adapting our ideas of what a local product is even, and what we want to champion and help educate diners about something like lobster and scallop prices that have gone up dramatically. And part is management and part is some of it is climate change and availability. It's not necessarily coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another
well, do you have anything like on the website where it would be like chef or consumer education sections?
For consumers, particularly, and for some of our, like what we consider our portfolio product wholesale, which are really products we're really excited about and think have really particular sustainability stories. Those all have dedicated sections on our website that talk about, like from the wholesale side, all our portfolio products, it'll talk about why this product, what kind of sustainability story is behind it, why we feel that, this version of this product, like this particular shrimp is a great choice, and like why we're excited about that. And on our e-commerce side, the wolffish.com site, then there's product details.
Which is great to know.
It doesn't always go too deeply into something just because, it's hard to gauge how much explanation people really want.
Sure.
It is changing. And so we have, as far as a sustainability initiative that I'm really excited about, I actually got so excited about this. I joined the board of greencrab.org. It's green crabs. It's a climate change story. It's a sustainability story. It's an invasive species story.
Not cool, but you know what I mean? Something to help.
Yeah, it's cool that we're going to try to, we've been offering green crabs for 2 years now, and Wulf was the only distributor to step up and do that. Honestly, no one's getting rich off green crabs. This is a sustainability initiative. The fishermen get some, we get some, but it's not, it's not like it's a giant moneymaker, which explains why other distributors didn't want to lead on it. You'd have to educate people. Some people said, no one's ever going to eat those. But honestly, there's absolutely no reason why. Green crabs are, in North America, they're an invasive species. They're from Europe originally. They came probably in the ballast of ships in the 19th century. And so they've been here, but our big control against their populations was really cold winters.
Wow.
Which, you need a hard freeze for some days. We don't really have that. I remember even when I was a kid, after this mild winter, thinking, my gosh, ice skating outside was a childhood pastime. That was one of those, like, your mother just was like, go skate outside, go to the pond. Like, get out there. And it was always frozen all winter. So that was an option. And nothing freezes like that anymore. Yeah. So, and I grew up actually in the marshy areas on the North Shore where we're buying our green crabs from. So nothing is killing them. The populations have exploded, and one green crab can eat 40 juvenile clams in a day.
Oh my gosh.
So when you look at they are voracious predators, and nothing is, and they have very little competition out there. So they're eating clams, mussels, oysters. They're a huge problem constantly around oyster farms, trying to get into the cages, trying to eat the young oysters, and so all the shellfish that is really native here and that we want to eat is something being threatened by green crabs. They compete with native crabs and lobster. They destroy the eelgrass with their little claws, which is eelgrass's critical habitat. The nursery, other crustaceans need it, and they're mowing it down. So anything that we can do to get them out of the water, and they are edible. They are small, but they make amazing stock. We've seen chefs and really think of them as an ingredient more than as a protein source. You can get the meat out, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's not, we know that's not going to work in most people's kitchen. But they have so much flavor. There's no reason for us not to take them out. And, you're really getting great utilization if you make a bisque.
Like a bouillabaisse, is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll make great stock for that. I've even used it with making a mushroom risotto with a crab stock.
Oh, very cool.
It's a really wonderful way to get the flavor. Yeah, that was delicious. We've seen chefs infuse them into butters. They're roasting the crabs, infusing them into butter, straining that off, and then using that on shellfish.
Very nice.
So I think they're really at the very beginning stages of innovation, and some chefs have tried fermenting them. If you have a place where you can ferment and make your own fish sauce, that's possible.
Oh, that's
so I think
really
there's
cool.
a lot of uses.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we haven't even scratched the surface, I think, of all the fun things you can do. But we have chefs all over now who are using this. And even, actually, I was just been doing some work with Smith College is going to put them on a lunch menu in a couple of weeks for Earth Day. So even in a big setting, you can make a dish.
That's great.
So I'm really excited about that. And I think that's one of our great sustainability stories, and that we, that we feel really good about. Like I said, it's a small piece of business, but we've been able to, really help provide extra income for the clam. All the clammers there of green crabs, anyone in shellfish is, because it's literally eating their business. So he's more than happy to trap the crabs for us.
Wow. Well, and that's a great story.
Was selling them, because unlike most things, you better put a trap down. It's full. There's so many.
Oh, really? Unbelievable.
It's not hard to catch. You can go catch them yourself. You've probably seen one on the beach if you've been tide pooling or anywhere. They are everywhere.
Right. Well, and that's a great story to educate the front of the house team with, and guests coming in. When they hear that, or have a part of even the culinary team and letting them kind of work on things, and you're working with them on being creative with it. I think that's just great, all of it.
Yeah, I think with the new products, or new to us, I mean, chefs in Europe have been throwing them in their stock since forever. It's not like we're not the first people to eat them. We just haven't eaten them in this country traditionally.
Right.
Chefs are going to really help lead that innovation, because
that is huge,
in the kitchen, it's fun to get something both with a great mission to it, and that's also a bit of a new toy. You might never have worked with it before. It's fun. And I think that innovation is really going to help inspire people to eat them, and hopefully inspire the company that will make the fish sauce and some other things that will really help get a big quantity out. But we're just kind of going into our next season now for them.
Right.
So it's been that's been an exciting project for us. And and we have many other products. Low story is something we're truly not doing.
Yep.
We were excited to be part of that. It's been an issue that you have these sustainable opportunities, and the scientists work on them, and many papers come out, and even articles come out, do interesting things. You ask, okay, great, I want to use them. How do I get them? And the answer is, well, nowhere. Nobody sells them. Go track them. Like, that's not practical.
Yep.
Which chef has the time to go catch their own crabs?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good grief. No.
Like, so, and typically, they just weren't on anybody's radar for getting them. So we're really happy to.
Well, I'm glad they are.
Provide that link in the system.
Yeah. Well, and like I've used, for example, like dogfish. I've done that, and like for fish and chips or something, and just kind of told that story of just, trying to use a different type of fish for this dish. And, it's one of those things where fishermen kind of find them a bit of a challenge to work around. They kind of get in the way. And, at some points they thought they were becoming a little bit invasive, but, I think taking these opportunities to, again, get them on the menu and discuss it with your teams, how can we use this, and brainstorm it, and then it becomes a big win for everybody, and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are lots of species underutilized, and sometimes not even that challenging, honestly, in the kitchen. I mean, if cod and haddock, working with hake and pollock is not that hard.
No,
they're close cousins.
Right.
To handle it a little bit differently, but not that hard.
Yeah.
And, and making sure that diners know, like, it might be harder to sell if people don't know hake. They've never heard of it, and they don't realize that it's swimming right next to the other fish that they like, and it's the very close cousin. And there's nothing scary about trying something new, especially when it's really, honestly, on the plate, going to be very familiar.
Right.
Something that has maybe really great culinary pedigree in other places. I mean, lots of European chefs love hake. They order it specifically. That we work with. Same with monkfish. I mean, I feel like anyone who's cooked under a really traditional French chef or ever cooked in France loves monkfish, and we have tons of it, and it goes underappreciated. I mean, it's one of my favorite fish and has so much versatility.
Right.
So many like interesting culinary property, like not falling apart. You can throw it in a braise. You can really do so much with it.
Yeah.
And it stands up to all of that.
Right.
But we don't eat nearly as much of it as we could.
Right. Yeah.
Because, people don't want to branch out from tuna, but like, it's out there.
I think that sometimes though, as a country, we've been kind of funneled in some ways and been made kind of comfortable by what all of you provide. Like, it's like, okay, shrimp, salmon, and we kind of get caught up in that. I mean, it's this expectation of like, this is my comfort zone, or even going into like produce and getting the perfect zucchini or whatever, and looking at these products and going, well, how can I try something different? Other countries have been eating dogfish for fish and chips for generations, but things are a little bit different, and the texture of the flavor profile might be a little bit different, but it's so adaptable, especially when you have a talented chef that does justice and does it right, and hits all of that.
No, absolutely. And there's, part of what's exciting about seafood is that diversity. I mean, a little bit different is a bonus for lots of people.
Right.
I don't want to eat the same thing every single day. You could eat a different dish every single day all year.
Right.
Really. I mean, if, we literally have that many coming into our warehouse of all different descriptions throughout seafood. And so, it can be in the market a bit of a closed loop.
Right.
Buyers say, well, people don't want this, so they don't buy it. There are no options. No one wants anything but salmon, so all they buy is salmon for the grocery store. Yeah. And then people go in, and the only fish that looks good is salmon, then they buy salmon.
Right.
So, and not that there's anything wrong with salmon, but there are a lot more fish, in the sea to sample and try. So it does become a bit of a loop, and I think it takes a little more courage from buyers and a little more willingness to educate.
Right.
I mean, we do, we bring in even smaller quantities that are harder to manage or bycatch. Like we'll work directly with some fishermen or have some contacts, and they'll be like, hey, we happen to get a little bit of this,
which is huge. Want it?
Because that's
bycatch discussion, huge on the menu. Really?
Yeah, and there's so much opportunity there, and it takes a willingness. And then the salespeople have to, no one calls up asking for that.
Yeah, and
you have to go and talk to them about it.
Exactly. Well, looking at it's like you're getting the bycatch that are, it may come in small amounts. Well, if I'm knowing that, then, maybe you are putting it in a seafood cioppino or, a seafood paella where you're not, it's not like you're putting 4 ounces, 5 ounces, or 6 ounces. You're doing a multitude of different pieces, and it's coming together, and you can use that bycatch once you're told about it, and kind of those ways where it kind of shares a place on the dish, like you said before.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like having a flexible attitude to seafood is really a way to get the best.
Right.
Honestly, as a chef, it allows you to take advantage of the happy accidents, like when something really interesting comes in, and is it going to be here next week?
Yeah.
No way to know. So you have to be flexible and jump on it when it's here.
Right.
Some things are more consistent, but some aren't. There are lots of species that are really caught, aren't even intentionally targeted, but they're caught while fishing for something else. I mean, even Atlantic halibut is part of that. Like sometimes it is caught as a bycatch from something else.
Yeah, you don't realize
desirable
that.
Species. So there's no problem, in making people want halibut.
Yeah.
But that's why at certain times of the year, there's almost none of it to be had. The price goes that high in the winter. And part of it is because it's not even a targeted fishery. It might be something like, we're just getting 1 or 2, that the boat got 1, and that's it.
Right.
And so if there aren't distributors, and fish buyers like Wulf who are willing to look at doing something different or take 50 pounds of something, which for us is a very small amount of something.
Right.
Then there's no market for it. Then what happens? Then you've just wasted something that could have been good food. You've unnecessarily taken fish out of the ecosystem, which always seems sad to me. That was, it's a waste of everyone's efforts too. It's a waste of the fisherman's time if they catch things they can't sell.
Right, exactly.
That takes the sustainability of everybody's piece of the chain down.
Right. Well,
and then just another thing beyond that we try to do is really sell the whole fish. Is another key piece of sustainability. I mean, we sell the collars. We sell most of that ends up, even in Boston, a lot of it ends up in the trash.
Yeah.
Because it takes some fine butchery to make it nice, but if we bring in a tuna, we'll sell the tuna collar.
Yeah.
To the chef. We sell sword chops from the swordfish, which is kind of like the collar. It's like a tomahawk steak, actually, once you butcher it properly and clean it up. And it's a phenomenal piece of fish. But without that extra effort and without that kind of hands-on commitment to that, it would go to the trash. And in that, the nose to tail eating is still at the forefront for a lot of it. It isn't happening at all. So there's nothing more sustainable than using the whole product.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And on that side, and people love them. Once they try them, they absolutely love them.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like making ribs or chicken wings or something, depending on the size of the fish. And sometimes they taste totally just for that different cut. That's another thing that we're doing that's kind of an everyday sustainability push that not everyone is going the extra mile, because it does require skill and it requires time to put something properly.
Right. And again, educating,
take that piece and make it good. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, and speaking of educating, I thought I had seen too, you guys had done like a caviar tasting.
We did a caviar tasting back in the fall, which was really, it was fun. It was a great opportunity. To work with chefs and really, we went through, I think we tasted 12 different varieties in a row. And when do you get to taste 12 caviars against each other?
Very often. Yeah.
Really not. And of course, it's hard to form a real opinion. Like, how do you pick a favorite when you taste one variety and then taste the second one 3 months later? Like,
exactly.
It's not the same experience. Go through what some of the different species resulted in, and what you're seeing on the labels, because they can be pretty confusing. Honestly, it's like, what kind of fish is it?
Sure.
Is it, things get called by different names.
Oh yeah.
For our consumption, most things, even if those varietals are hybrids.
Yeah.
Because if there's one of like the parentage for that sturgeon might be an endangered species, you can't bring the caviar that's only that one variety in. It has to be hybridized so we can show that farm. Like it's not permitted otherwise for import even. So like things like that get really confusing.
Sure.
People are confused about like, is it endangered? Is it not? What aspects of that?
Yeah.
The caviar that we're buying in the U.S., smaller kind of subspecies that are domestic, everything else is farmed.
Right.
And it's farmed around the world. And that's a great thing, because wild populations are critically endangered.
Yeah.
That's why there's an incredible amount of international regulation about what you can and can't.
Right. Wow.
That was fun to do that. And I hope I think we'll probably do caviar again. And I think, I'd love to see some other kinds of fun classes. Really.
That's what I was curious about. If you provided,
Yeah, we haven't done them for the public. These have been for chefs so far. Although we're partnering with a restaurant, Pagu in Cambridge. Chef Tracy Chang is doing a sushi making class with us and talking through like how to cut and how to torch. And so we're doing that in the restaurant.
That's great.
I think that's going to be really fun and really hands-on, or a little bit lazy if people get intimidated by hands-on. There'll be someone there from the restaurant to help you. But get some of those fun little tips and tricks that you get on a restaurant menu, and it's so delightful. And you wonder, how in the world did they do that? Because I look at that piece of fish and I can't make it happen. So helping bridge that gap, which is that we're looking forward to more. Do internal classes too, just to make sure that we know how to describe things. Like recently, we did a 5-species oyster tasting to really taste every kind of oyster from the U.S. And down the East Coast is pretty much the same species. So once you know that, you can really appreciate the contribution of terroir. And then on the West Coast, you have 3 different species that are coming in that are really totally different from Washington or from California, where they're cultivated. And then the wild belongs that are actually not native. They came from France years and years ago. probably, and then are really something else entirely. If you realize
Wow.
how many different ways an oyster can taste.
Well, and it
so
is, I
that was
mean,
exciting.
I don't want to put in along the lines of like wine tasting, but I mean, but you do get like melon and briny and buttery. And I mean, you're getting, some markers in there where, some of the meat inside is bigger than some other varieties. And, so oysters are unbelievably educating. Cucumber, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And so, I mean, it is very similar to wine tasting, because especially when you realize that, that it is the same species that's native and the same species that's being cultivated from, from down as far as Florida all the way up through, Canada. Prince Edward Island is all the same species, kind of like you might have a Cabernet grape, but depending on how you treat it and where it is, it can taste so different. It really is very much the same thing, which is exciting, and how many factors go into changing that flavor, and where it is in the water, how it's cultivated.
Yeah.
Is it cultivated on the bottom? Is it in cages? Is it tumbling with the tides? Like, there's so many different pieces that it is. Yeah, it's another endlessly fascinating thing. And we, like I said, Becca, our shellfish buyer, she's a real. So she just finished an oyster sommelier program. There's now an Oyster Masters Guild that is doing kind of a some style of training for
That's
oysters.
so great.
And she's moving through that first cohort.
Okay.
So I think, you really can taste profiles in a different way, and be able to pick up and, as a real specialist, be able to look at an oyster and tell how it was raised. I can't do that, but she can.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, again, it is, I guess it is like, the wine tasting and building that palate of understanding the region and the waters, and, were the waters colder this season? Did that play a part? What is it that plays a part in that, kind of like the terroir for wine, it's kind of like, okay, what, how are the oceans, and the seafloor, how is that all playing a part into it and into the species itself, So
no,
very
it
cool.
really, like wine, it really is endless.
Wow. Yep. No, and I love them too. I love getting a hold of any of those that come in. So, all right. Had a great conversation. So much information to take away.
Thanks. No, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no,
talk about fish all day long.
I know. Again, it's funny, even talking to Monterey Bay Aquarium, Sean and I were talking about that seafood is like the most diversified protein out there.
Mm-hmm. Really is amazing. Yeah, how much diversity you can embrace there.
Thank you, for your time, Alicia, and everything you guys do at Wolf's Fish. It's just excellent. And, if you can pass that forward and thank everyone for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Have you been out to visit us?
No, I have not.
Well, when you have some time, if you want to see where the magic happens, see the
that'd
plant
be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I would love to get out there sometime. You just got to get it in the books. Do
Mm-hmm.
you want to share with the listeners, where they can, like e-commerce and how they can be a part of this with you guys and find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to wolfsfish.com, and we are, still hand cutting that, super freezing it in-house. So it makes it a little bit easier to stock up. We really invested in doing that. And we ship all over the country, wider variety.
Oh, very cool. Yep.
And interesting things to try on our site. I think on average, we have usually at least 50 different kinds of seafood for sale on the website. Yep. Versus that, the counter that might only have the 3 or 4 for you. So it's a fun way to experiment, to try, that exciting fish that you got at a sushi restaurant and have never, ever seen at retail. There's a good chance that we have it on our site.
That's really cool. And what was that website again?
Wolfsfish.com.
There we go. Thank you. Awesome.
And then for chefs or anyone who really wants to take a deep dive, we have a wholesale website, which is Wolffish Wholesale. And that, really gets into a little bit more from the professional standpoint and more of the nitty gritty on some of the products. So that's we keep the 2 different resources.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Alicia, thank you so much for your time. And just your wisdom, we went through so much amazing knowledge and information. Again, that's the reason why Wulf's Fish is in business and has been in business since 1926, hitting that 98-year marker of excellence. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, everyone, that is a wrap. You can check us out if you like that, subscribe. Also, the Instagram, Chef Massey. Let's keep it simple. chefmassey.com. Have a good one. Bye for now.